Clear goals, immediate feedback, and the challenge-skill ratio are considered conditions for flow. However, they do not actually describe the state itself. Missing in this description is the one element that truly sets flow apart, the creative, problem-solving nature of the state. Because flow requires action. Otherwise, action and awareness cannot merge. There is decision-making involved in every step. The brain has an electrical response. EEG measures those responses down to 1/1000th of a second range, which allows us to track how the brain changes across time when someone is decision-making. And this can be an athlete solving a physical problem or an artist solving an aesthetic one. Today we can see everything that leads up to the decision itself, and everything that happens as a result. No other technology can do that. Since flow is a fluid action state, making better decisions isn't enough. You also have to act on those decisions. The problem is fear, which stands between us and all actions. Yet our fears are grounded in self, in time, and in space. With our sense of self out of the way, we are liberated from doubt and insecurity. The first step in the flow cycle is known as the struggle. Benson, the Harvard cardiologist, who did much of the foundational research on this cycle, chose the name for a reason. Struggle is a loading phase. We are overloading the brain with information. The next stage in the cycle is release. To move out of struggle and into flow, you must first pass through the second stage. Release means to take your mind off the problem, to, as Benson says, completely sever prior thought and emotional patterns. In the zone, the flow state itself is the third stage in the cycle. Struggle gives way to release, gives way to flow. Afterward, we move into the fourth and final step in the cycle, recovery. Flow is an extremely expensive state of the body to produce and maintain. It requires a lot of energy, a lot of neurochemistry, and both take a little while to replenish. This is some of what goes on in recovery. More important, memory consolidation is taking place. The fight or flight response, aka the adrenaline rush, the cocktail of adrenaline, cortisol, the stress hormone, and norepinephrine. It is an extreme stress response. The brain switches to reactive, survival, autopilot. Options are limited to 3: fight, flee, or freeze. Flow is the opposite, a creative problem-solving stage, options wide open. You may have experienced a flow state in some point, that sense of fluidity between your body and mind where you're totally absorbed by and deeply focused on something beyond the point of distraction. Time feels like it has slowed down. Your senses are heightened. You are at one with the task at hand as action and awareness sync to create an effortless momentum. Some people describe this feeling as being in the zone. This is the flow state, and it is accessible to everyone, whether you are engaged in a physical activity, a creative pursuit, or even a simple day-to-day task. Popularized by positive psychologist Csikszentmihalyi and Nakamura, flow state describes a feeling where, under the right conditions, you become fully immersed in whatever you're doing. There's this focus, that once it becomes intense leads to a sense of ecstasy, a sense of clarity. You know exactly what you want to do from one moment to the other. You get immediate feedback. Csikszentmihalyi said in 2004 TED Talk, Csikszentmihalyi and Nakamura reached this conclusion by interviewing a variety of self-actualized, high-performing people, including mountain climbers, chess players, surgeons, and ballet dancers. Here are the benefits that motivate these individuals and could also motivate you to go forth and reach the flow state as often as possible. Heavy sense of concentration. Being able to focus on the work without getting distracted leads to a higher output of higher quality work. Sense of clarity. In a state of flow, your body and mind will know what needs to be done without having to think about it. Lack of obstacles. The thoughts and feelings that generally cloud our minds, such as stress, worry, and self-doubt, take a backseat when we achieve a flow state. Good feelings. Being in a deep flow state is often described as an intrinsically positive experience. There's no superficiality driving this force. It's just the pleasure that comes with being in the moment and doing something that you are passionate about. Happiness. The type of happiness one can gain from being in a flow state goes beyond a temporary high. It is a general sense of well-being and a lasting sense of happiness and fulfillment. In order to achieve flow state, there are some common conditions that need to be met. Number one, you need to care about the task at hand. Number two, the activity, job, or a task cannot be too easy or too difficult. Optimally, the activity should be something that you are good at. And number four, your mindset surrounding the task should be focused on the journey, not the destination. You could be an athlete focusing on the game instead of the medal, or a mountain climber focusing on the climb instead of the top view. There are groups of flow triggers that help you enter the state: psychological, environmental, social, creative. Pattern recognition. The brain's ability to break down existing patterns, colors, data, shapes, movements, sounds, concepts, successes, risks, failures, and so on. And then create new ideas using those patterns by linking new ideas and risk-taking. The courage to bring those new ideas to the world. Will the new concept be well received, or will it be scanned? All creativity requires an element of risk and courage. Whatever your passion, think about the intrinsic factors motivating you as you tackle your task. Couple this with no interruptions, and flow state should follow as a natural consequence of these conditions aligning. It is in this state that we take giant steps in our level of fulfillment, moving in the direction that was previously not even dreamt of. In it, we are completely dissolved in what we are doing, so much that it feels like time is slowing down. We're so deeply in the present moment that we merge with the activity itself, giving us the overwhelming feeling of being one. In this state, there is no doubt. There are no stresses or pressures blocking us from achieving what we want. There is no inner voice criticizing every move we make. We are completely immersed in the task at hand. This state is not elusive. The state is not mystical. It is called the flow state. When we are in flow, we are adjusting to reality cues like riding a flow wave. We experience the most desirable state we might find ourselves in. It's about total trust and total absence of fear. A sense of extreme happiness, connectedness, and harmony pervades in your being. You feel in tune with the task. moving with an accuracy and composure and fully enjoying every second of it. Athletes call it the runner's high, or being in the zone. Others call it a heightened state of consciousness. Buddhists call it nirvana. By entering the flow state, we experience what is called transient hypofrontality. Transient meaning temporary. Hypo, the opposite of hyper, meaning to slow down or to deactivate, and frontality is the prefrontal cortex, meaning we deactivate to fully activate. These areas in the prefrontal cortex that are shut down are the sets of cognitive processing where we distinguish the difference between self and other, our sense of time, our internal dialogue, moving us from high-range beta brainwaves into low-range beta, into alpha, into theta, and even gamma, with everything these brainwaves bring forth for max flow, and bathing us in a chemical cocktail from norepinephrine and dopamine, endorphins into anandamide, and oxytocin and serotonin in the recovery phase. Basic intention is to create a personality that is as fluid as possible in any given circumstance and enables one to flow through life in a meaningful and a fulfilling fashion. Deep down, on the level of body chemistry, there are two distinctive extremes of how we perceive reality. It is a binary game of fear versus trust, stress versus relaxed. So in essence, everything boils down to this generalized feeling that we experience in the present moment. Either you feel and act on the world in fluid flow mode, in fashion engaging task positive networks, where our thoughts, actions, and resulting outcomes are coherent and meaningful, or you act out of fear, engaging default mode networks in a perpetual survival mode with all of its accompanying anxieties and negatives. Each of the neurochemical extremes and everything in between is a driving or motivational force for different needs and values that arise based on either of the states. It is straightforward intuitive that a positive flow mode will spawn universal values that you can observe, and that fear mode is a breathing ground for fear-based values that will inflict heavy burden on overall perception while hindering individuals' cognitive abilities to a survivable minimum.